Welcome, the new video. In this recap, a lonely boy asks aliens to abduct him, but when they mistake him for Earth's leader, he must stop an intergalactic war before both planets are destroyed. In an astronomy museum, little Elio Solis sits under a table, saddened after discovering he has just lost his parents. Now, his only family is Aunt Olga, an Air Force pilot who dreams of becoming an astronaut but had to give up that dream to care for her nephew. She tries to cheer the boy up, but Elio prefers to be alone and takes a walk around the museum. In a dark room, he sees a presentation of Voyager 1, a spacecraft launched into outer space with the goal of bringing answers about the existence of extraterrestrial life. The idea of traveling in space thrills the boy, and from that day forward, Elio dreams of going to space and encountering alien beings. Unbeknownst to him, the Voyager 1 spacecraft flies aimlessly through the universe until it is abducted by a mysterious green light. Years later, Elio continues to live with Olga, but every day he goes to the beach in front of the military base to write messages in the sand. He hopes the aliens will come to get him, but nothing happens, and the boy decides to start a club to get a radio capable of receiving messages from the aliens. One night, a young man named Bryce asks to join the club, bringing his father's old radio. Caleb, a schoolmate, also shows up, and suddenly, the radio begins tuning into a mysterious frequency. Caleb gets curious and picks up the radio to listen better, but Elio tells him to put it down before he breaks it. The two start arguing, and Caleb accidentally hits Elio in the face with the radio, causing his eye to swell. The boy gets angry and attacks Caleb until two soldiers hear the fight and take the boys to the base. Because of the injury to his eye, Elio needs to wear a bandage for a few days, and his aunt scolds him after discovering that he is skipping class to go to the beach in secret. Elio tries to justify himself, using the language he created to speak with the aliens, called LAs. However, his aunt is already tired after a long day at work, and leaves the boy in her office, asking him to behave until she returns. The boy obeys, but he soon hears Olga being called by the officers, who say they picked up a strange call coming from the satellite. Believing them to be aliens, Elio secretly follows his aunt and enters the trash can in the control room to listen to the entire conversation. Olga then goes to speak with Melmac, an Air Force analyst, who shows her a recording captured from space. The message is the same one sent by the Voyager 1 spacecraft, and Melmac believes it was sent back as a response from possible aliens. Upon hearing this, Elio becomes so excited that, when everyone leaves the room, he uses the computer and transmits a message via satellite. The boy asks the aliens to abduct him, but the message causes an overload in the computers, disabling all the power to the base. Once again, Olga needs to clean up her nephew's mess, but Elio doesn't care and is eager to receive the visit from the extraterrestrials. However, his aunt can no longer tolerate the boy's disobedience and decides to send him to a military summer camp so that he can put this matter aside. The next day, she takes Elio to the campsite, where he ends up meeting Bryce and Caleb again, who are furious about what happened on the beach. Because of this, at nightfall, the two boys decide to get revenge, giving Elio a scare. Disguised as aliens, they approach Elio's tent, but the boy hears everything and secretly runs away towards the forest. At that same moment, Olga is working on the computer when she receives a strange message being transmitted through all the monitors. Suddenly, the screens display words that, when put together, form the phrase, "We want to speak with your leader." Back at camp, Elio continues running until he reaches the beach, but the boys manage to find him, and Caleb prepares to teach Elio a lesson. The boy tries to apologize when he sees a mysterious light approaching and tries to show it to Caleb, but accidentally pokes him in the eye. Furious, the boy throws a punch at Elio, but before he can hit him, time around them suddenly freezes. Without understanding what is happening, Elio breaks free from the boys and watches the light rise into the sky, revealing itself to be a strange type of spaceship. Immediately afterwards, a green light begins to illuminate Elio, who, believing he is being abducted, agrees to go along and is pulled inside the ship. Upon arriving there, he is greeted by U, a liquid computer who gives him a kind of disk to adjust gravity and serve as a translator. Furthermore, he invites the boy to visit the Communiverse, a place where the most advanced beings gather to share knowledge. U shows the boy 3 of the community's ambassadors, and they say they are looking for a new member. Thanks to Elio's interest in meeting the aliens, he was abducted and can become a new ambassador if he passes the test. Before that, the ambassadors take the boy to learn more about the Communiverse, starting with Neos, the artificial intelligence. She is fluent in all languages ever created in the universe, including Elianese, which the boy invented. In addition to that, Elio discovers the Universal User Manual, containing all the answers to the universe's greatest mysteries. Next, he encounters the mollusks, tiny creatures capable of creating anything through nanotechnology, and with this knowledge, they create a new suit for Elio. After presenting part of the community universe, the ambassadors explain how they located Elio. They then show the Voyager 1 spacecraft, which they found wandering in space, and since then, they have been searching for its creator. When they finally received Elio's message, they brought him to be Earth's ambassador, believing the boy would be the planet's leader. Upon hearing this, Elio tries to explain the truth, but U appears, summoning everyone to an emergency meeting. Upon arriving, the ambassadors gather before Lord Gregon, Emperor of Hylarg, who wishes to become part of the Commonwealth. However, due to his tyrannical behavior, Gregon is rejected once again and vows revenge against the ambassadors. As soon as he leaves, Questa and the others decide to flee, and they need to cancel Elio's appointment until the situation is resolved. The boy will then be taken back to Earth, but Elio refuses and offers to speak with Lord Gregon, asking him to cancel the attack on the community. The ambassadors are surprised by the boy's courage and accept, but Elio's absence from his planet needs to be explained. To do this, U takes a DNA sample from the boy and creates a clone, sending it to the moment when he would be attacked by the boys from the camp. With that problem solved, Elio asks the Universal Manual for help in learning negotiation techniques. The next day, on planet Earth, his aunt Olga goes to confront the camp officials for allowing other boys to attack her nephew. Unaware that this is Elio's clone, Olga takes him back home, but soon notices something different about the boy. He is more obedient and understanding than usual, and even offers to help with the housework. Olga believes the camp ended up being a great help, and little by little, she's getting closer to her nephew. Meanwhile, the real Elio finishes studying with the Universal Manual and departs in a mini spaceship to meet with Lord Gregon. Before the Emperor, Elio uses everything he has learned and tries to convince the Lord to give up being part of the communiverse. With his power, he can find other communities and share valuable knowledge with new alien species. At first, Lord Gregon is tempted to accept the proposal, but he soon changes his mind, as he will not be rejected by the largest community in the universe. He then orders his men to arrest the boy and prepare his army for battle. Elio is then left in a cell, where he sees an opening in the ceiling, closed by a grate. Using his communicator, he alters gravity and manages to float to the opening, which leads to a narrow tunnel. In search of a way out, Elio crawls through the tunnel, but ends up falling into a hole and getting trapped in a kind of web. To make matters worse, a creature resembling a giant worm tries to attack him, but the disc translates its language, revealing that the alien is a peaceful being called Glorden. He is the son of Lord Gregon, but unlike his father, the young alien wants nothing to do with war and only seeks to be accepted by the family. Seeing that he can trust him, Elio tells the truth and says that he came from Earth after being abducted by ambassadors from the communiverse. However, they believe Elio is the leader of the planet, when in reality, he's just a boy who wanted to explore space. Finally, he asks Glorden for help to convince his father not to attack the community, and the young alien agrees, leading him to the prison's exit. Along the way, Glorden asks if Elio also has family, but he explains that he lives only with his aunt Olga since losing his parents. He continues, saying that his aunt doesn't want him around because, due to him, she couldn't fulfill her dream of becoming an astronaut. However, upon hearing this, Glorden says that she must love the boy very much, because otherwise she wouldn't have given up her dream for him. Elio refuses to believe this and tells them both to continue towards the exit, when suddenly, they hear a sound coming from the other side of the tunnel. At that very moment, a burst of lava begins to erupt, and Elio panics, ordering Glorden to hurry. The lava draws ever closer, so the alien tells the boy to enter through his mouth, as his body is resistant to high temperatures. With no other choice, Elio pushes past Glorden's sharp teeth, and the alien's body withstands the lava, being pushed out of the tunnel. Now that they are free, Elio runs back to his ship and takes Glorden with him to the community. Upon arriving, the ambassadors inquire about the negotiations, but Elio has no time to lose and requests a communicator to speak with Lord Gregon. The Emperor answers the call, and Elio orders him to cancel the attack on the community, revealing Glorden, his son. The boy pretends that the alien is in his custody, and to prove it, he starts tickling Glorden, with Gregon believing it to be some kind of attack on him. The Lord then accepts the conditions and promises to cancel the attack in exchange for having his son back. Elio tells the Emperor to fetch him from the communiverse and sign a peace agreement, ending the conflict. After the negotiation, the ambassadors congratulate Elio and invite him to dinner, promising that after the agreement, he will be appointed part of the group. Before leaving, the boy calls Glorden, but the alien isn't used to the low temperature of the communiverse. Elio helps him, activating the communi disk to alter the temperature, and for the next few hours, the two have fun together throughout the communiverse. Meanwhile, Lord Gregon tries to think of another way to become ambassador without risking his son's life. He then has an idea and decides to accept the peace treaty, provided he can take his hooded armor, worn by all the Hylord, back to Glorden. With this, the alien will transition from child to adult and must serve the Empire without question. In this way, Glorden will help him dominate the community, and then everyone will have to accept him as the new ambassador. Lord Gregon travels to the community to inform them of this situation, with Elio and Glorden watching from afar. The young alien cries upon learning of his father's plans, because when he dons the armor, he will become a soldier of the Empire, no longer able to play and have fun with his friends. Upon learning this, Elio calms him down, promising to help him with it, and he takes him to Midu. As soon as they find the computer, Elio asks for a clone of Glorden to be created, so that he can wear the mask in his place. The alien doesn't believe this plan will work, but Elio decides to prove it by showing his own clone. However, when the boy asks Yu to show it to him, he sees the clone next to his Aunt Olga, who seems to be having more fun with the copy than with the real Elio. This only increases his suspicions that his aunt doesn't love him, and he decides to help Glorden so that they can both live freely in the community. Then, using the same cloning technique, Elio creates a near-perfect copy of Glorden and goes with it to meet the ambassadors. Upon arriving at the location, Lord Gregon is happy to see his son safe and asks him to enter the armor and become part of the Hylord army. Elio is afraid the deception will be discovered, but the armor works, being fully compatible with the clone. Lord Gregon is so pleased with this that he abandons his attack on the community and calls his son back to the ship. The ambassadors breathe a sigh of relief, and as a reward for their efforts, they decide to appoint Elio as one of their own. Questa is about to hand the ambassador's emblem to the boy, but everyone hears the sound of a gunshot, and Glorden's hood falls to the ground. Lord Gregon has discovered that this was not his son, but a clone, and because of this betrayal, he demands to know where Glorden is. Upon realizing he was telling the truth, Questa uses her mind-reading ability to access Elio's memories and discovers that Glorden is inside a spaceship. The Emperor then orders his men to bring him back, just as Glorden is playing with his toys on the ship. Unintentionally, he ends up activating the control panel mechanism, causing the ship to speed off towards Earth. This only makes Lord Gregon even angrier, and he takes control of the community, taking all the ambassadors prisoner. Elio tries to help, but Questa says he needs to leave, and then she opens a portal to Earth and sends him back to the beach. Meanwhile, his Aunt Olga continues enjoying the evening with Elio's clone, who has just finished making dinner alone. After the meal, the boy washes the dishes and goes to bed, but before he does, his aunt gives him a goodnight kiss. As soon as the boy enters the room, Olga reveals that she took a strand of his hair with her tongue and takes it to analyze under a microscope, suspecting that this is not the real Elio. However, the strand of hair manages to escape and follows it back to the boy, entering his body. Olga sees everything, and to end any suspicion, she removes the bandage from Elio's face, revealing that there is no eye underneath. Finally, the clone grabs Olga's hand, and seeing that he has been discovered, he tells her the whole truth. Far away, Elio looks towards the sky, asking to return to the community, but no one answers his call. The boy then decides to return to the shore when he sees his aunt arriving, alongside the clone. She tells him to get a few more items from the car and begins writing a message on the ground, but her flashlight stops working. Olga becomes irritated when she sees a boy approaching, believing him to be Elio's clone. He asks what happened, and Olga says she's trying to contact the aliens, hoping to find her nephew again. She says that life without him is lonely and meaningless, with Elio saying he's felt the same since his parents died. Hearing this, Olga looks at the boy, and as soon as she removes the bandage from his eye, she hugs him, happy to have found the real Elio. Furthermore, the lights around the ground turn on, revealing a message written in the sand that says, "Aliens, send him back home." The boy is confused, as he believed his aunt didn't like him because he had forced her to give up her dreams. However, Olga replies that she has always loved him, and since adopting him, she wants him by her side every day. Finally, the two reconcile, and the clone appears soon after, saying that something strange is happening at the military base. The three then set off for there, and Elio recognizes his ship, which has been captured by the army. The boy explains that his friend, Glorden, is trapped inside, and asks his Aunt Olga to save him before it's too late. She accepts, and now that his mission is accomplished, the clone bids her farewell and begins the decomposition process. However, Elio begs him not to do so, as he needs his help one last time. Inside the base, the army takes the spacecraft in for inspection when, suddenly, a boy appears outside, asking for help. The guard asks what happened, and the boy begins to limp until he approaches the soldier, his face melting. The man panics, and chaos ensues at the base, with Elio and Olga taking advantage of the distraction to sneak into the room. Inside, Olga puts on a protective suit, and Elio opens the ship, where he sees Glorden shivering with cold. Besides accidentally activating the ship, the alien ended up damaging the communication disk and can no longer control its temperature. If nothing is done, Glorden won't survive, so Elio asks his aunt to take him away from there. However, a group of soldiers appears, ordering Olga to raise her hands and hand over the alien. Instead of obeying, she speaks in the Elianese language, asking her nephew to throw off her helmet. The boy obeys and throws the helmet at the soldier's face, with Olga closing the ship's door and ordering Elio to take them away. With that, the three speed off from Earth, and Elio tries to keep Glorden warm while his aunt controls the ship. As soon as they cross the atmosphere, Elio tries to activate hyperdrive, but the control center doesn't allow it because the path is blocked. Seconds later, debris begins to appear in space, and the only way to get past it is by knowing the coordinates. Elio has an idea and contacts Bryce by radio. Upon recognizing his voice, the boy apologizes for helping Caleb at the camp. Elio also apologizes for how he acted and asks for his help, as they need to escape the wreckage in space. Bryce then rushes to contact the specialist, none other than Melmac, and the analyst agrees to pass on the coordinates. Using his computer, he shows the safe route, and the ship manages to pass by them, but it ends up going out of transmission range. Once again, Elio and Olga are alone, and debris begins to crash into the ship, damaging its protective hull. This seems to be the end, but thanks to Melmac's help, analysts from other countries make contact, passing on the new coordinates. With that, the ship passes through the wreckage, and finally, hyperspeed is unleashed, and the three continue towards the community. Upon arriving there, they find Lord Gregon holding all the ambassadors captive in a force field. Upon seeing the ship, he runs to find his son, whose body is growing increasingly cold and who is unable to stand. Elio rushes to help his friend, but it's no use, and Lord Gregon, in an act of desperation, raises his claws in an attack stance. Olga rushes to protect her nephew, but instead of attacking him, the Lord strikes his armor with his claws, revealing his true form. He then embraces his son and creates a web, wrapping Glorden's entire body around him to warm him. With all his effort, Lord Gregon manages to bring his son back, saving his life. Everyone is relieved, and Elio embraces his friend, asking him to tell his father the truth. The young man then reveals that he never wanted to be a warfighter, and to his surprise, Gregon understands and respects his decision. He then orders his men to free the ambassadors, and finally, peace returns to the community. Thanks to his courage and determination, Elio is presented with the ambassador's emblem, allowing him to stay by their side forever. The boy is overjoyed, however Olga will not be able to stay with him, and a portal opens, taking her back to Earth. However, Elio relinquishes his title and thanks the ambassadors, but he prefers to return home to his family. The boy then joins his aunt Olga, and the ambassadors accept his decision, saying that he will always be welcome in the community. Before leaving, Elio hugs his best friend Glorden, and then returns home through the portal. As soon as they leave him on Earth, the ambassadors reveal the community to everyone around. Elio and Olga hold hands, and like those seeing alien life for the first time, they are certain that they are not alone in the universe. Days later, Elio and Bryce resume their radio club, seeking to communicate with beings from other planets. After managing to tune into the correct frequency, the two hear the voice of Glorden, who asks Elio about all the news from planet Earth. Subscribe for more recap videos.